Let's start with the smaller reason and slowly work our way towards the largest reason why it sucks to fight Kamaru Usman, the Nigerian Einstein. You think Kamaru Usman just wrestles you to death? Nah bro, fighting Usman sucks because you're not stepping in with a brawler. You're stepping in with an African monster who's hungry to achieve something in life. You're standing up to someone who took all of Africa on his shoulders. You think you can stop him? Maybe you should go and try to achieve something in life too, after you watch this video. His teammates call him an obsessive film junkie who studies patterns, not just fights. He watches opponents walk to the cage, how they blink at interviews, how they react to feints on embedded. Every detail matters. He once tried to coach the US Olympic wrestling team. They said no, so he chose violence instead, joined MMA, and became the first African-born UFC champion out of spite. Let me take you back to UFC 261. Kamaru Usman versus Jorge Masvidal 2. Masvidal was 5'11" and weighed 170 pounds. He had 35 wins, 18 finishes, and 14 losses. The BMF champion was a striking veteran, crisp boxing, clinch, and takedown defense. He's been throwing hands since people used CDs, not to mention his iron chin. In 50 bouts and 17 years as a pro, he'd never had his lights shut off. These two met a year prior, and Usman won. Masvidal took their first bout on 6 days' notice, though. Now he had a full camp. He wanted revenge. I wasn't a huge fan of Masvidal. I saw that flying knee against Ben Askren, which knocked him out cold, but I felt he was overrated. So I was looking forward to this one, because I thought he'd get exposed. My friends and I were rooting for Usman. During their first bout, Usman grappled to nullify Masvidal's striking. Usman knew Masvidal expected to sit. This time, he used feints and exploited Masvidal's tendencies. He was jabbing and showing level change feints while maintaining composure. Usman set up Masvidal. No rush. He only engaged when the opening was certain. Masvidal kept his hands low, so Usman capitalized on it with a perfectly timed right cross. A full camp and a full-blown funeral for Masvidal's hype train. Usman shut up many haters that night after finishing a media darling. Speaking of media darlings, subscribe so I can become one. The cardio nightmare. Before he ragdolled people, Usman wanted to be an NBA star growing up, but his height made him pivot to wrestling. Regardless of the sport, he always knew he'd be an athlete. He trained like one since he was a kid, hence his impressive cardio. Usman maintains a high pace without fading or coasting. His pace ramps up. By round 4, your lungs are pleading harder than all 8 of Diddy's lawyers. Let me take you back to UFC 235. Kamaru Usman versus Tyron Woodley. Woodley was 5'9" and weighed 170 pounds. He had 19 wins, 11 finishes, and 3 losses. The welterweight champion had one-punch power and explosive wrestling. After 4 title defenses, welterweights looked at him like the guy who someone in your friend group keeps inviting, and you just pray he goes away. He finished Lawler in a minute, shut down Wonderboy twice, and dismantled Till. Woodley was on a 7-bout win streak. Of course, I'll never look at him the same way after he was knocked out by Jake Paul. He sold his legacy for money, but that's a topic for another day. Usman was facing a fortress, so he brought dynamite. He maintained high output for 25 minutes without slowing down. Woodley had excellent conditioning, but he was exhausted by the 3rd round. Usman mixed clinch control and strikes. Throughout the bout, there were 0 breaks. He weaponized his conditioning, landed 336 strikes, 6 takedowns, and had 10 minutes of control time. All 3 judges scored it 50-44, the most dominant 5-round performance of any UFC title fight. He won the belt, but that was just getting started. It'd be hard to take it off him, given he had a mean chin. Sure, eventually Leon Edwards cracked the code with that head kick, but if you were watching UFC during his title reign, you know Usman had a mean chin. I mean, it's in his DNA. His brother, Muhammad, is also in the UFC. He won the Ultimate Fighter. He tragically lost his 2-year-old son in 2019, and that gave him a reason to push through every struggle. Kamaru's daughter already has jiu-jitsu trophies. During the first years of his life, Usman didn't have running water. Sometimes he didn't have shoes. Now his teammates joke that he showers more than anyone and won't even wear the same gym shoes outside. He keeps things cleaner than a Dagestani's record. People with that background are built different because pain is progress. Let me take you back to UFC 268. Kamaru Usman versus Covington 2. Kobe was 5'11" and weighed 170 pounds. He had 16 wins, 8 finishes, and 2 losses. He was America's most hated cardio machine, with trash talk that made Uncle Chell proud. This was revenge. The last time he fought Usman, he lost for the first time since 2015. It was close. I was cracked like a fortune cookie. But Kobe was a nightmare, a relentless athlete with NCAA Division I wrestling, absurd pace and volume. Imagine being punched 400 times by a guy who refuses to breathe. That's Kobe. But when you fight Prime Usman, that wasn't enough. Even his mic game was improving. Early Usman interviews felt like he was reading a Wikipedia page. But by the time he told Kobe he broke his face, he was ready to cut wrestling promos.
Fake stoppage, fake breath, fake fall. Wait till I see you next time. Wait till I see you next.
On fight night, Usman dropped Kobe twice in the second round, but Kobe stormed back and landed clean shots in the third and fourth. Kobe wobbled him late with a combo that reset Usman. Yet Usman held his ground and somehow outlanded Kobe. Even while getting cracked, he didn't shoot for safety. He stayed in the pocket and traded. And if you think he just takes strikes without returning them, think again. Jabs and leg kicks. Wrestling's not Usman's only threat. He uses a fast, accurate jab to disrupt rhythm, manage range, and accumulate damage. That thing's a GPS tracker. It resets your router. He wins rounds without power shots. And when you finally adjust, he changes the script. He doesn't just throw flashy calf kicks, just hard ones at the right time. And they add up like overdraft fees. Let me take you back to UFC 258. Kamaru Usman versus Gilbert Burns. Burns was 5'10" and weighed 170 pounds. He had 19 wins, 14 finishes, and 3 losses. Durinho was Usman's former teammate and sparring partner. They trained together for years. They shared rounds, sweat, and probably snacks. Usman developed strong bonds with his training partners. When he trained with Rashad Evans, he slept on his floor to save money. But when the title's on the line, Brotherhood's thrown out the window. Burns was on a 6-bout win streak. He devolved from a grappling lightweight into a welterweight wrecking ball. And not the Miley Cyrus type. World-class jiu-jitsu, heavy hands, he could melt you standing or wrap you like a Christmas gift on the mat. After getting rocked early, Usman took over with a relentless jab, switching stances and landing on Burns. The jab disrupted Burns' rhythm, set up shots, and led to knockouts. He also chopped his legs, slowing him down. One of Usman's jabs dropped Burns in the second. He switched to southpaw often, giving Burns different looks and using the right hand as a jab. While it kept Burns' hands high, the kicks chipped away his base, forcing him to retreat. This was Usman's best striking performance. He didn't even rely much on his second most dangerous weapon, the clinch. Once you're pressed against the cage, you're not escaping until Usman says so. Shoulder pressure, foot stomps, knees. Fighters get stuck there and end the round looking older than Obama after he left the White House. Kobe, Burns, and Woodley tried to break free and failed. Usman traps opponents against that fence. Some call it stalling. I call it hitting someone's kidneys with your knees. Let me take you back to UFC 251. Kamaru Usman versus Jorge Masvidal 1. Masvidal was 5'11" and weighed 170 pounds. He had 35 wins, 18 finishes, and 13 losses. He was riding a superstardom wave powered by his flying knee. Masvidal stepped in on 6 days' notice. He'd seen everything from backyard brawls to Strikeforce title eliminators. A veteran with slick boxing, kicks, and awareness. In 2019, Masvidal flatlined Till, made a mockery of Askren, and turned Nate into a mashed avocado. He was on a 3-bout win streak. He said he'd baptize Usman, but the only thing baptized was his gas tank. Game Bread was stuck on the cage fence for 25 minutes. Usman neutralized the striking threat with his clinch game. He pinned Masvidal to the cage, using shoulder pressure and foot stomps to maintain position and rack up control time. He mixed punches and knees while staying glued to Masvidal's hips. Masvidal was known for shrugging off grapplers, but not Usman. Dana said the champ was not marketable, which didn't age well given the 1.3 million PPV buys. Usman main evented MSG, sat front row at Fashion Week, and rolled with Drake. Dana has him on speed dial now. The man almost starred in the Black Panther movie, which did wild numbers. But if we're talking about numbers, remember this equation, because it's the #1 reason why it sucks to fight Usman. Pressure and pace doesn't equal peace. Usman won a D2 national title. He wrestled with a broken hand for an entire season and still placed. He's dealt with chronic knee issues since college. At one point, his cartilage was so shot he couldn't walk on treadmills. In 2011, he was broke and sleeping on floors like a mixtape rapper who hadn't dropped yet. His knees were gone, but he didn't quit. He switched styles and started training smarter. He never trains on hard surfaces. No pads on hard wood. No sparring marathons. Just calculated warfare. Then, when he decided winning decisions in the UFC, he'd ice his knees for 6 days straight. He'd wrap him up like a mummy just to do mitt work. Yet somehow he still pressured Woodley, Leon, and Masvidal like they owed him money. And when they survived the takedowns, he crushed them against the cage like the last Pringle in the can. He did all of it on knees that sounded like bubble wrap every time he stood up. Somehow, the guy who had to walk downstairs backward turned into the most dominant welterweight since GSP. Let me take you back to UFC 245. Kamaru Usman versus Covington 1. Kobe was 5'11" and weighed 170 pounds. He had 15 wins, 7 finishes, and 1 loss. Kobe was the sport's most booed man, but underneath the bad guy MAGA cosplay was a legit welterweight. He was riding a 7-bout win streak that included Maya, RDA, and Lawler, to whom he threw 541 strikes against. He drowned guys with volume. His movement, scrambling, and pace made veterans look like they were fighting underwater. He wasn't just annoying inside the cage, outside of it too. This was Kobe's WWE era, MAGA hats and chaos. During the build-up, he even mentioned Usman's dad, who'd been sentenced to 15 years in prison. I remember seeing this bout live. My brothers came over and we were excited because the build-up had been so intense and they were evenly matched. Kobe believed he was about to win the belt, and for 4 rounds, he nearly did, until Usman shut that noise down with a jawbreaker. It was a wild bout, little wrestling, mostly striking, and a TKO in the 5th. Usman's first title defense was one of the best title bouts ever. His relentless pace won him the war. Now watch this video and don't forget to join our Discord.